The Crimson Sky of Kumbh. The roar hit Ronak like a physical force. It was a cacophony of chanting, drumming, and the relentless lapping of the Ganges against the Ghats, a symphony of chaos that both repelled and fascinated him. The Mahakumbh Mela sprawled before him, a riot of saffron robes, painted bodies, and shimmering silks under the harsh midday sun. He could smell incense, wood smoke, and a strange, earthy tang that clung to the air, heavy and unfamiliar. Ronak, a city boy more accustomed to the sterile hum of air conditioners than the clamor of religious fervor, found the whole spectacle overwhelming. He tagged along behind his older brother, Amit, who had come seeking spiritual solace after a heartbreak. Ronak, however, was here for the adventure, the sheer spectacle of it all. He saw the throngs of pilgrims, their faces worn with travel, their eyes filled with a devotion he couldn't comprehend. He watched the sadhus, their ash-smeared bodies, matted hair, and piercing eyes, their eccentric garb seeming like some outlandish theater costume. He saw them, but he didn't see them. That's how he missed the warning. On the third day, drawn by a particular stillness in the midst of the chaos, Ronak found himself near the bank where a particularly gaunt sadhu sat in deep meditation, his eyes closed, his face set like stone. Ronak noticed the mala around the sadhu's neck. It was nothing like the brightly colored ones he'd seen before. This one was made of dull, black beads, etched with strange symbols that seemed to writhe in the low light. Driven by curiosity, Ronak reached out, his fingers brushing the cool, heavy beads. The sadhu's eyes snapped open. They were the color of the stormy Ganges, and for a brief, horrifying moment, Ronak thought he saw a flicker of red within them. A tremor ran through the sadhu's body. He let out a low growl, a sound more animal than human, and Ronak quickly drew back, a prickle of fear crawling up his spine. He muttered an insincere apology, a dismissive wave of his hand, and rejoined Amit, who was engrossed in conversation with a swami. That night, Ronak couldn't shake off the memory of the sadhu's gaze. The Mela, so vibrant by day, seemed to shift, the sounds turning to whispers in his ear. The usual earthy smell was now tinged with a coppery scent, and he could feel the weight of something heavy pressing down on him. He told Amit about the incident, about the strange sadhu and the mala, but Amit, ever the rationalist, dismissed it as stress and exhaustion. "You're just overthinking it, Ronak. The energy here can mess with your head." The next day, the sky was a disturbing shade of crimson, the color of blood mixed with ash. Ronak felt a distinct unease. He was now plagued by shadows in the corners of his eyes, fleeting glimpses of a figure that seemed to stalk him from the edges of the crowd. Tall, gaunt, with eyes that glinted with an unnatural red light. He started seeing that same red in the flames of the evening fire, and the heat seemed to burn with an unnatural intensity. One evening, Ronak was walking alone near the river. He felt an icy chill, and his breath turned into a puff of white. He glanced back, and a shadowy figure stood far away, right next to a fire. The figure had long limbs and seemed to be staring at him. Ronak ran as fast as he could and hid in the crowd. The crowd seemed to melt around him as he desperately sought his brother. The mala had returned to haunt him. He began dreaming of it. The cold, heavy beads, the strange, writhing symbols. In his dreams, he could feel the cold touch of the shadowy figure, the same figure he saw in the crowd, and he could feel himself losing his hold on reality. His insomnia grew worse, his nights filled with whispered chants that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere. He became withdrawn and paranoid, suspecting every shadow, every glance, convinced that something was hunting him. Amit, initially dismissive, began to notice a change in Ronak. The jokes had stopped. The vibrancy was gone. He saw his brother's eyes were bloodshot, his face gaunt. The skepticism that was his natural defense began to fray. When Ronak showed him the marks on his arm, finger-shaped bruises that pulsed with a strange cold light, Amit could no longer deny that something was terribly wrong. "It's the mala, Amit," Ronak pleaded, his voice trembling. "That sadhu. I disturbed him. I disrespected him. He cursed me. I know it." Amit was still reluctant to believe in curses, but when they talked to the Swami who Amit had been conversing with, the Swami's words confirmed their worst fears. "Some things, young ones, should not be touched. Some energies are best left undisturbed. The Mahakumbh is a powerful place, and with power comes a dark side." He spoke of ancient curses, of entities bound to objects, of disrespect, triggering terrible consequences. He told them about a sadhu that went into a long mediation and became very powerful, and the man made a mala that was made out of dark magic. But his own pride led him down a dark path. The mala has a will of its own, and it will not rest until it gets what it wants. Ronak was terrified. The curse, or whatever it was, felt like a physical entity, a weight on his chest, a claw reaching from the darkness. He realized that it wasn't a show. This was real. The power of belief was palpable. He wasn't just paying a price for his disrespect, but he was also being forced to confront a spiritual depth he'd so casually dismissed. The climax came on the final night of the Mela, beneath a sky the color of a dying ember. The shadowy figure emerged from the swirling mist that had settled over the Ganges, its red eyes burning into Ronak. He saw the figure extend a hand with long, bony fingers. They pulsed with a chilling cold, and Ronak realized this figure was after the mala within him. The being lunged at him, and Ronak pulled away with all his strength and ran. The figure chased him as he desperately sought refuge. Amit, armed with a newfound belief, chanted mantras he'd learned from the Swami, creating a circle of protective energy around Ronak. Ronak, finally understanding the depth of his transgression, closed his eyes and begged for forgiveness, not just from the sadhu, but from something far greater. He had to release his hubris and finally acknowledge the true sacredness of this place. The figure shrieked, its form flickering like a dying flame before finally dissipating, leaving behind only a lingering chill and the faint coppery smell that had become so familiar. The red in the sky faded to a soft gray. Ronak felt the weight on his chest finally lift. They found the sadhu in the morning in a deep mediation, his mala laying on the ground next to him. They didn't disturb him. Ronak returned home, forever changed. The Mahakumbh was no longer just a spectacle, a colorful backdrop for his adventure. It was a place of immense power, a reminder of the unseen forces that shape our lives, a lesson in the consequences of disrespect, and a testament to the enduring power of belief. He now understood that hubris could blind you from the mysteries that lay all around, and that sometimes it is better to leave the sleeping mysteries undisturbed. He would never forget the crimson sky, the icy touch of the shadowy figure, or the lessons he had been forced to learn under the watch of the sacred Ganges.